King Henry VIII.
King Henry VIII, born on June 28, 1491, is one of the most famous and controversial figures in English history. His reign, from 1509 to 1547, was marked by profound changes in English society, the establishment of the Church of England, and a dramatic personal life that included 6 marriages. Henry's rule was a mix of brilliant achievements and ruthless decisions, painting a portrait of a monarch driven by ambition, desire, and the pursuit of power. Henry was the second son of Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. His early years were spent in the shadow of his older brother, Arthur, Prince of Wales. Arthur's death in 1502 changed Henry's destiny, making him the heir apparent. Educated in the humanist tradition, Henry was well versed in theology, philosophy, languages, and the arts. This education shaped his later decisions as king. When Henry VII died in 1509, the 17-year-old Henry ascended the throne. His early reign was characterized by a vibrant court life and a keen interest in chivalric ideals. He was charismatic, athletic, and highly intelligent, quickly earning the admiration of his subjects. His marriage to Catherine of Aragon, Arthur's widow, was one of his first significant acts as king. The marriage, initially controversial, was approved by Pope Julius II. Henry's early reign was marked by a desire for glory and recognition on the European stage. He sought to emulate the chivalric kings of old, leading England into costly wars against France and Scotland. The Battle of the Spurs in 1513 and the Battle of Flodden Field in 1513 were early military successes that bolstered his reputation. Henry's court was a center of Renaissance culture. He patronized artists, musicians, and scholars, and his own contributions to music and poetry were notable. The king's interest in theology was deepened by his close relationship with Thomas More and other leading humanists of the time. Despite his early successes, Henry's reign is most famously defined by his marital issues, particularly his quest for a male heir. By the mid-1520s, it was clear that Catherine of Aragon would not provide him with a surviving male heir. Henry's desperation for a son and his infatuation with Anne Boleyn led to a series of events that would forever alter the course of English history. Henry's desire to annul his marriage to Catherine resulted in a protracted legal and political struggle with the papacy. Pope Clement VII's refusal to grant the annulment led Henry to break with the Roman Catholic Church. This schism culminated in the establishment of the Church of England, with the king as its supreme head. The Act of Supremacy in 1534 solidified this break and marked the beginning of the English Reformation. One of the most significant consequences of Henry's break with Rome was the dissolution of the monasteries. Between 1536 and 1541, Henry and his chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, orchestrated the closure and destruction of hundreds of religious houses across England. This move was partly motivated by financial necessity as the crown seized vast amounts of wealth and land. It also served to weaken the power of the Catholic Church and eliminate potential centers of resistance. The dissolution had profound social and economic impacts. Many monastic lands were sold off to the gentry and nobility, leading to significant shifts in land ownership. The loss of the monasteries, which had been centers of charity, education, and healthcare, left many communities bereft of essential services. Henry VIII's 6 marriages are legendary and reflect both his personal desires and political ambitions. Each marriage had significant political and religious implications. Catherine of Aragon, 1509 to 1533. Catherine's failure to produce a male heir and Henry's love for Anne Boleyn led to their divorce. The Pope's refusal to annul the marriage precipitated the break with Rome. Anne Boleyn, 1533 to 1536, Anne's marriage to Henry was a key factor in the Reformation. She gave birth to Elizabeth, who would become one of England's greatest monarchs. However, Anne's failure to produce a male heir and her eventual execution for alleged adultery marked a tragic end. Jane Seymour, 1536 to 1537. Jane gave Henry his long-desired male heir, Edward VI, but died shortly after childbirth. Her death deeply affected Henry, and she remained his favorite wife. Anne of Cleves, 1540. This political marriage was short-lived, annulled after just 6 months. Henry found Anne unattractive, and the union was never consummated. Catherine Howard, 1540 to 1542. Catherine, a cousin of Anne Boleyn, was executed for adultery. Her downfall was swift and brutal, reflecting Henry's increasing paranoia and ruthlessness. Catherine Parr, 1543 to 1547. Catherine, Henry's final wife, outlived him. She was a stabilizing influence and helped reconcile Henry with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. The religious landscape of England was dramatically altered during Henry's reign. The king's rejection of papal authority led to significant doctrinal changes. The 10 Articles of 1536 and the 6 Articles of 1539 outlined the new religious orthodoxy, which retained many traditional Catholic practices while rejecting papal supremacy. Henry's religious policies were complex and often contradictory. He maintained many Catholic doctrines and was hostile to more radical Protestant reforms. This religious conservatism was evident in the persecution of both Protestant reformers and staunch Catholics who opposed his supremacy. The Pilgrimage of Grace in 1536 to 1537 was the most significant rebellion against Henry's religious policies. This popular uprising, centered in the north of England, protested the dissolution of the monasteries and the imposition of the new religious order. The rebellion was brutally suppressed, and its leaders were executed. Henry's later years were marked by increased paranoia, ill health, and financial troubles. The king's obesity and leg ulcers made him increasingly immobile and dependent on his courtiers. His court became a hotbed of intrigue and factionalism, with various noble factions vying for influence. The foreign policy of Henry's later reign was characterized by costly wars with France and Scotland, which strained the royal finances. The Field of the Cloth of Gold in 1520, a lavish meeting between Henry and Francis I of France, exemplified the king's desire for prestige and recognition. However, these conflicts yielded little territorial gain and left the crown deeply in debt. Despite his personal failings, Henry VIII's reign had a profound and lasting impact on England. The establishment of the Church of England set the stage for the religious transformations of the Elizabethan era. His policies laid the groundwork for the development of a more centralized and powerful English state. The redistribution of monastic lands contributed to the rise of a more dynamic and influential gentry class. Henry's children, Edward VI, Mary I, and Elizabeth I, each inherited a divided and turbulent kingdom. Edward continued his father's religious reforms, moving England further towards Protestantism. Mary's attempts to restore Catholicism led to significant persecution and conflict. Elizabeth's reign, often seen as a golden age, balanced these religious tensions and established a relatively stable Protestant settlement. King Henry VIII remains a figure of enduring fascination and debate. His reign was characterized by dramatic changes and contradictions. A charismatic and learned king, he was also capable of great cruelty and ruthlessness. His break with Rome and the establishment of the Church of England were watershed moments in English history with profound religious, social, and political implications. Henry's personal life, marked by his 6 marriages, reflects his complex character and the intertwining of personal desire with political necessity. His later years, marred by ill health and financial troubles, contrast sharply with the vibrant and ambitious young king who ascended the throne in 1509.
Ultimately, Henry VIII's legacy is a testament to the transformative power of individual rulers and the enduring impact of their decisions on the course of history. His reign set the stage for the Elizabethan era and the development of modern England, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's history.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Delving into the Deep for regular updates.